Welcome to Confessions of a Loveaholic. I am your host, Emmy Hernandez, and I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Confessions of a Loveaholic was born from years and years of research that I've done with my clients and on my own in order to help women and couples understand what does it mean when we are addicted to a certain pattern? How do we break patterns of heartbreak? How do we break patterns of attracting the same people over and over and over and over again with a different face and a different name? And sometimes, in the case of one of my clients, a guy with the same name that she dated back to back, that was an abusive partner. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some details about my personal dating life and how I got to the point where I attracted and manifested the love of my life, my soulmate, Matt. Matt and I have been married for almost 3 years, and we've been together for almost 7 years. And the journey to how and where I met him was not easy. I will tell you that. But I can tell you that it was worth it. Every single day, I get to wake up, roll over, and see my man staring at me. And I get to hear, "Good morning, my love, good morning, beautiful," every single day. Our relationship is intentional. It is not an accident. And I want everyone to know that you can have whatever it is that you desire in a relationship, and you can create that. You don't do it by hoping it'll happen. Hope is not a strategy, but conscious creation is. I am a firm believer in God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and I use the laws of the universe to my advantage. I use the law of attraction, the law of polarity, and many, many more in order to get every single one of my desires, and I manifest everything I want when it comes to love, health, relationships, and when it comes to money and abundance. So, welcome to this journey on Confessions of a Loveaholic, because we're going to be going into the details with every single one of our guest experts around how do you rewire your nervous system? How do you rewire your brain? How do you change your thoughts and your patterns to heal? And how do you step into the identity of the person that you want to become? On this journey, we're going to be learning a lot about what it means to heal, the healing process, how the brain works, and also how the body works and how everything is connected. Nothing works in isolation and nothing works in a silo. So I'm going to walk you through very briefly some of my dating journey and tell you exactly how I got to where I am. My first serious boyfriend was a man or a guy I met my first week at college at Berkeley. So here's the thing, he wasn't even a student there. Red flag number one. Red flag number two, I met him at a frat party, by the way. It was my first week on campus. And by the way, I met him the day before classes started. Another red flag is that I was 17 still. And he was already 25. Okay. He had already graduated with a master's degree from another university. So now this man, he was a good guy. Okay. He didn't do anything. And he did wait until I was of legal age for us to do anything. And at this point in my life, I thought I was going to wait until I got married to go all the way, because I grew up in a very strict Mexican Catholic household. And what that household put above everything else was my virginity. Okay. My virginity was the only thing that mattered when it came to my worth as a woman. And obviously, I don't believe that anymore. Luckily, I was one of the few lucky ones that had a good experience, and it was consensual when I did want to lose my virginity to him. But I will tell you this much. After we did the deed, I remember I cried for like a solid 4 hours straight, and he was really confused, and he was doing the best to support me. He's like, "Did I hurt you? Like, what happened?" And I was like, "No, no, no. Like, I'm okay. It's just that," through my sobbing tears, I told him, "You're not gonna love me anymore because I'm not a virgin." That's how much that concept was ingrained in my mind, that that was a sense of value. And luckily we did stay together for a little while longer. But let me tell you why I ended up breaking up with this guy, because he wasn't a bad guy. I'm very grateful to him and his family was really, really good to me. Thanks to him I learned how to snowboard. Thanks to him I learned how to eat at fancy restaurants. Like, it was a good relationship, but it wasn't great. It wasn't fantastic. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't a bad guy, right? We were together for almost 3 years, and we were getting to the point where I could tell that he was starting down the path of us potentially getting engaged. Now, there were a lot of things that happened in our relationship that I can look back now and be like, yeah, not okay, not okay, not okay. He never cheated. He was never disloyal. But here's one of the main things that I can tell you really bothered me in our relationship. We grew up from very different backgrounds financially. I grew up in the hood, in the streets of LA. He grew up in another city that was very, very affluent, Los Angeles. So much so that they had their own live-in housekeeper. Yes. And their backyard was the beach. Okay. This multi-story mansion. I don't know how many millions it's worth today. His family never treated me any differently, which I'm very grateful for that. Here's the thing. He was the baby of 4 kids, and he never learned the art of having a job or paying your way. He grew up very entitled because he thought everything was just handed to him. His very first job was the week that we met. He started his very first job at 25 years old. I had been working since I was 14. Okay. What happened was that created a lot of arguments and a lot of triggers in my mind and my body when we wanted to do activities that were very costly, because he was basically living the high life. He was making really, really good money. And I was bringing home, remember, I was in college. I was a freshman in college and I had a full-time job. I was making maybe $700 a month. Okay. And on top of that, I had to pay for schooling. So the second year I had to pay for rent, and I was still only making around $700 a month. And I was working part-time, apologies, not full-time, on campus. So this created a lot of disconnect within me, where he would say, hey, let's go do this expensive activity. And because I was a strong, independent woman, I wanted to pay for half of it. He never offered to pay, by the way. Very rarely would he offer to pay. And I would say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it. And he would say, come on, it'll be fun. I never understood how in his brain something being fun was, how was that going to solve the problem about me not being able to afford it? He didn't understand the concept of not being able to afford something. So that created a lot of embarrassment and humiliation inside me, because I thought there was something wrong with me, that I should be able to afford these expensive activities, and I couldn't. So there was a major disconnect there, where he definitely did not have a provider mindset. In fact, he invited me to Hawaii. Okay. I bought my own flight. We stayed with his brother for a week. So we didn't pay for housing. We stayed at a hotel for 2 nights. And while we were at the front desk, he tells me, and he tells the person that we're checking in, and he's like, well, she's got to give us her credit card because she's going to pay for the second night. She looks at me and she's like, you're paying for the second night, right? Because I'm only going to pay for the first one. I was so embarrassed. We hadn't talked about that, but here he was, we're splitting everything 50-50. And I didn't know at the time why it bothered me. I thought it was just because I was broke, but I can see now the difference between a man who has the provider and protector mindset, and he did not have that at all, even though he was a lot older than I was. So we had some major issues and major disconnects there. And there were some other issues. One of the biggest one was he had a roommate. His roommate was really cool, but this guy, the guy that I was dating, was super messy. He never, ever cleaned up after himself. There were times where there were at least 15 glasses, water glasses, on his nightstand that were filled with mold. It had been there that long. So when I would come over, I would be grossed out and disgusted, right? I would see him like once a week, once every 2 weeks. There was one time where I was walking around and from the dry cleaners, one of his clothing items lost the pin and it stuck to the heel of my foot. It was so painful. Okay, that happened to me, and yet he still wouldn't clean up. So I figured, I'm the oldest of 7. I know how to clean very well. Like, let me just help him out and let me clean for him, right? Like, this is a good thing that we could do together because once he gets it clean once, he'll keep it that way, right? Or like, at least it'll get the momentum going. Nope. I helped him clean. I don't know how many different times. The kitchen was always a mess. The bathroom was always disgusting. I mean, it was above anything that you can imagine in terms of like it violated, I don't know how many health codes. So it got to a point where after I helped clean up so many times and I left it immaculate, he would get it dirty over and over and over and over again. And I kept telling him, like, hey, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. Like, can you make it better? Can you hire someone? So he had the money to hire someone, but he was really stingy. He was not generous with his money at all, not with others and not with me. He wouldn't buy, he would always pick whatever he thought was the cheapest present. So this made me feel like I didn't deserve anything nice. And I'm not someone that you need to go over the top with expensive gifts in order for me to feel loved. No, it was the thought that counted. But he would never put in the effort to do anything nice for me because it cost too much, or even the fact that it cost any money. And that really hurt and that really bothered me, especially for someone who did have a lot of money growing up and was making a lot now as an independent person. So I got to the point about 2.5 years into the relationship where I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Let me tell you what was the final straw. For 6 months straight, I kept having the same dream over and over and over again. You know what that dream was? Me signing divorce papers. Yep. So I finally decided to call it off. I knew he was getting ready to propose, but I didn't want to do that. I did not want to live that life. We were living like an old married couple. I was only 19 at the time, and when I would show up and visit him to his home, I would drop my bag in his room and we would sit on opposite sides of the couch, sometimes not even acknowledging each other for hours on end until the show or the movie was over, and then we would say hi. What? What kind of life was that? The sex was mediocre. The relationship was mediocre. The love was mediocre. He wasn't a bad guy, but he also wasn't that great. Our relationship was just okay. And I'm so happy that I had the foresight at that point in my life to say, I don't want this. I don't want this long term because it just wasn't good enough. I knew that I was destined for something much, much, much better. And you might be feeling that right now. So I remember I told him it was over. I broke it off. And for about 6 months, he continued to beg me to take him back. He said he cleaned, he took pictures, he built a website to show me that he was cleaning his bedroom. Too little, too late. I didn't want to do it anymore. I had all of the feelings I had for him had been gone and probably had been gone longer than before I broke up with him. And I remember I called my mom and I told him that we broke up. And she said, "What did you do? What's wrong with you? He's a good guy. He's a good man." And I thought, man, yeah, it's always my fault, right? She just didn't understand that there was just so much more that I knew that there had to be out there for me. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that version of me who, at the time, I didn't know that the nightmares and the dream that I was having over and over and over again of me signing divorce paper was like a download from the universe, right? I know that now, and I'm so grateful that even though I didn't understand how the universe worked and how downloads happened, I still went through, and I'm so grateful to this day that I did not marry that man because I'm pretty sure we'd be divorced by now. Probably would have had a couple kids, and it would have just not been a good long-term relationship. Fast forward, got through college, dated some guys here and there, a month or two, nothing really stuck. It wasn't until I was 23 years old that I went to a personal development seminar in San Francisco. And it was amazing. I met an incredible man there. He was very charismatic and spoke very well and had this incredible confidence about him. And about a month later, he's like, hey, move in with me in San Diego. And I was like, okay. And so I was really excited and I thought things were going very, very well. And so I moved in with him. Well, it turns out that he didn't have a job. He was living off of some insurance money that he had gotten from an old claim from a car accident. And not only that, he was basically kind of homeless. He had sublet his room in his house in this apartment complex in San Diego, and we were living in the living room. So I wasn't even allowed to go into the bedroom, and I didn't know what to do at this point because I left my job. Silly me, I left my job. I left everything I knew in San Francisco because he said he was going to take care of us, and I was like, okay, this is awesome, right? So while this was going on, I started realizing something's off. Like, this doesn't feel right anymore. He would hide my car keys. I wasn't allowed to go and hang out at Starbucks and work on getting a job or anything else by myself because to him that was disrespectful. I wasn't allowed to look at baristas in the eye if they were men because that was disrespectful. If I had an interview over the phone, he would have to listen in on the other side of the headphones to make sure that the man wasn't flirting with him and that I wasn't flirting back. This man was so insecure, yet to the outside world, he was a god. He was getting asked to speak at motivational seminars. He was going through certification after certification. Everyone thought it was amazing that we were dating. He would show me off as his trophy girlfriend when we went to events. The truth was that at that point, I was terrified of him. He never threatened violence, but he was a lot bigger and stronger than I am. And he made it a point to let me know that if he wanted to, he could hurt me. In fact, I found out during our relationship that he had been put in jail because his previous girlfriend called the cops on him because he slapped her, but it was in self-defense because, according to him, she slapped him first. And he was in jail. I think he was only in jail for a day or two, but who knows what the truth was now. And guess what? I believed him that he was the victim. So during this time, it was about 2 years of us back and forth and us arguing and fighting every single day. It didn't matter what happened in our life, he would argue and fight with me about everything and tell me that I was being disrespectful. Even there was one time where he started a fight because I started playing tennis. We went out to play tennis with him and his brothers and his dad, and I started playing tennis with his brother, and we got back to the car and Tim said that was so disrespectful. And I was like, why? Like, we were just like hanging out, doing nothing. He's like, you can't play with my brother. That's disrespectful. And that turned into an 8-hour fight in the car. He wouldn't let me eat. He wouldn't let me sleep. Okay. He would not let me sleep until he decided it was time and we had resolved the issue. So it got to a point where I was going into psychosis. I wasn't eating. I was getting very bloated and I had what we now know abuse eyes. Is my eyes were kind of sunken in. I had very dark circles here. And I didn't know who I was. He was doing something called gaslighting, where he would turn everything around on me and I would bring something up and he would say, no, like that was you, or I didn't say that. So I got to the point where I was really questioning my life and what was happening. And I just, everything was, I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. And then he said he wanted to help me with my finances. So we created a joint account, had all my money transferred into the joint account, and he was going to handle everything for us. He sure did. He made it a point to not pay my phone bill for 3 months so that I would lose that phone number, that I lost all contact with every single family member, every single friend. When that relationship ended and I was finally able to get away, by the age of 25, in September, I filed and declared bankruptcy. And I was 2 days from putting myself into a psych ward. It was one of the worst years of my life, one of the worst times of my life. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was or where I was. I was lucky enough to be able to stay in a safe place and restart my life. I got a random retail job just so I could feel some semblance of normalcy. Even though I already had my degree, I couldn't use my brain. It wasn't working. I had to do things that were just basic admin things, which full respect. I just had a lot of other skill sets that I couldn't use because my brain was shut down. I finally realized that I had to do something. And a year later, I put myself into an intensive 1-year course with amazing coaches that changed my life forever. They taught me the art and science of truly loving myself and of healing my body, of healing my nervous system, because my nervous system was still addicted to that guy. Even though I knew he was bad for me, even though I knew he was evil and he was a monster, I still missed him. I had so much judgment around why the beep did I miss this guy? What was wrong with me? Hence, when I started learning about addiction and the nervous system and how the brain goes to what is familiar. You see, I didn't have a very healthy upbringing. My parents are great, that they did the best that they could, yet there were some things that just didn't translate. And the idea of emotional safety was not there. I had a house over my head and I had food, which I'm grateful for. That was about it. Emotional safety, communication, and love was not in that household. And that's okay. I don't blame my parents for that. I've done a lot of healing around that as well. But now, as an adult, I had to change and rewire those beliefs. So I started my journey on healing and consciously choosing that I wanted soulmate love. It was either the best or nothing at all. I refused to take on mediocre love. And even during this journey, I missed this guy. So much so that I reached out to him a year later, before the full healing was done. And I asked him to come see me. And when I asked him to come see me, of course, I paid for his ticket. And I paid for his ticket. When he came to see me, something magical happened. And I'm so grateful for God and the universe for this. When he was walking down the hallway and I picked him up from the airport, I had this visceral experience in my body. And this visceral experience told me, now you vomit. It was not pleasant. I had to hold myself back from literally vomiting when I saw him. It was like God and the universe saying, no, we're done. We're done here. See, what happened was, because I had started my healing journey and I had started to rewire my nervous system, my brain, my body, what I was attracted to before now revolted me. So he was literally revolting to me. I paid extra for him to leave the next day. And that was it. Finito. The end. There was no more like, oh, I can't go no contact. I can't block him. Like, it was so easy to block him after that. And I'm so grateful that I experienced that, because now I can do that on purpose for my clients. But that was just divine intervention. There's no way, there's no other way for me to be able to explain that. I'm grateful that I experienced that, as painful and as horrible as that was, because I don't judge women who are going through that anymore, because it happened to me. Fast forward, I had done most of my healing work, and I would say a lot more came up. And I met a wonderful, amazing guy who I call my soulmate prep. The reason I call him my soulmate prep is because he was so close to soulmate level. And I got to be my fullest version of myself with him. I got to be my fullest everything with him, all my quirks, all everything. I was vulnerable with him. He didn't treat me any differently. He was amazing. But it got to a point about a year into the relationship where I could tell that he didn't really want to move forward. He was 2 years younger than I was. I was 27, he was 25. And I was already ready to start talking about moving in together and potentially marriage long term. And he was not. And as much as it broke my heart, we had to end things. Why? Because that was the best thing for the both of us. It was not fair for him to continue in a relationship where he knew he wanted to explore and be with other women. And it wasn't fair for me to stick around and see if he would pick me. Because you see, when you find your soulmate, you find your soulmate at divine timing. There's no such thing as he was my soulmate, but it was the wrong time. No, there's no such thing. He wasn't my soulmate. He was a good prep because I got to practice a lot of what I learned and how to be a good partner and how to be a good potential wife and how he allowed me to be my fullest expression of myself. And I'm so grateful to him to this day because even though the breakup was hard and very painful, 6 months went by of me feeling like I was having a heart attack every single day because of how much I missed him and how painful this was. But I remember there was this one time my friend and I were walking down the beach after the breakup and she told me, Emmy, what gave you the courage to break up with this guy, even though the relationship was amazing? And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I love me more than I love him. And I meant that. And I mean it till this day. Because when you don't love yourself, you don't know what true love is. Being able to attract a true soulmate means you need to become your own soulmate first. And it wasn't until then that it finally clicked. But I can tell you, fast forward 3 years after that, I went to Greece for my 30th birthday, had an absolute blast. And no, I didn't meet my soulmate there. Sorry to tell you. But here's the thing, I had been living in San Francisco for a really long time, and I just felt like this inkling, like that chapter was closing in my life. I didn't know why. It was just something in my body that told me that I was done. I didn't hate San Francisco. I loved it. But I also knew that I had some healing work to do with my family and that I wanted to be closer to them. So I moved to a different state to be closer to my family. And there, the universe was like, haha, I finally got her. I went on the dating apps. I went on Bumble. I had been on Bumble for a while, but had gone on some previous dates with some guys that hadn't really gone anywhere. By the way, that my soulmate prep guy, I met him on Match.com. So on Bumble, here I am. And I matched with this awesome guy. It's first date, so who knows what's gonna happen. I met Matt. We went out for a slice of pizza. The date went so well that we continued and we had a cider at a rooftop bar. The date went so well that we continued and hung out and talked in the car and made out for like 3 hours. That man is now my husband. Every single day after that first day, he asked me out on a date and I said yes. I think we didn't see each other like once or twice because we had previous engagements, but this man courted me. He courted me and respected the schedule that I had, and he had a busy schedule as well. But we knew that once we met, this was it. We were each other's person. Did I know he was my soulmate on the first date? Of course not. I still had the first date was just a vibe check to see if we got along well and we liked being each other's company. Date 2 was where we checked each other's values. Like, are we matching in how we see the world and how we view the world and how we view other people and how we want to live life? And on date 3 is where we both say that we fell in love with each other. We didn't say that then. It was just like this knowing we were already sort of in sync and our bodies, minds, and souls were already synchronizing. And my husband gets something called deja vu. I don't get deja vu, but he does. And he said that before he met me, he had had 3 instances of deja vu his entire life. And that week that we went out, that first week we went out, he had deja vu 15 times. Just the universe, boom, 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 telling him like, you already experienced this, you already experienced this, you already experienced this, you already lived this life together, you already lived this life together. So kind of bringing us back, our souls remembered each other. So I want you to know that even though the journey might be painful, and even though there will be heartbreak along the way, I want you to never, ever, ever give up. I can tell you today, I am the most spoiled wife on the planet. I am so loved, so spoiled, and so adored, so cherished every single day. When there's slight miscommunication, he doesn't run away. He doesn't make me feel bad. When there's something that we have that we disagree on, he sits and listens calmly and lovingly to me until I can get out whatever it is that I need to say. And he supports everything that I do. We are on this life's journey together to be able to show people that this type of love is possible, even if you didn't see it growing up, because I sure as hell didn't. There's no one around me in my life, family or friends, that have the relationship that Matt and I have. But we know that even though we didn't come from soulmate love comes from us. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being on this journey with me. So excited to have you joining us on the episodes that are to come, because soulmate love, if it's something that you yearn for and you desire, is meant for you in this lifetime. And I can't wait to have you learn all the details of how to attract and manifest your soulmate in your life. I love you so much. I can't wait to hear more from you in any and all the ways that I can help you. If you want details, sign up for our newsletter at howtomeetmysoulmate.com. Can't wait to see you in next episodes, my lovely.